Well, good morning and welcome to our fast format. This is going to be an incredible 45 minutes. We've got people that are joining us from places like Double Bay here in Sydney, the northern beaches of Sydney, all the way up to the Sunshine Coast in beautiful Queensland. A lot of great agents from Melbourne, South Australia, also over in Perth. And we've got people joining us from beautiful New Zealand. So great to see you all here this morning. In addition to that, we've also got people that will be getting a copy of the recording in London and also Dubai. Over the course of the next 45 minutes, I want to leave you with an incredible level of energy and momentum, but most importantly, some inspiration on some great things that you can do on the inside of your career. And we know that now more than ever before, that this is such an important time in what it is that we get to do as great real estate agents. As a part of that, one of my opening slides is this whole conversation. You got to know when you're getting lucky. And right now, the real estate industry globally is massively getting lucky. Record low interest rates, record number of transactions, record number of price records that are being broken in nearly every marketplace that we operate in. We've seen property prices that continue to climb. And off the back of that, we're seeing agents have some of their best ever months on record. Over the course of the next 45 minutes, I want to give you some insights on what we're seeing some of the best agents do right the way around the world to make sure that they can maintain this level of consistency, both in and out of different lockdown situations. Interesting conversation. I love this. There are going to be some people here that will turn up to today's training session and walk away practically unchanged. Yet there will be people that take some of the gold nuggets out of today and go on to write over $1 million extra in fees. And it comes back down to a very simple philosophy, something that Ari Weinswig talks about. And ultimately, where does change really happen? And change actually happens for us in our organizations when we've actually got clarity about something we go to call dissatisfaction. In addition to that, we've got a huge level of focus on our vision, and we're prepared to go and make the first steps happen. And this is such an important part. I want you to leave today feeling massively dissatisfied with your lot in life. I want you to have an incredible vision for what it is that you want. And I want to empower you with some of the important conversations on what you can be doing to make more of the first steps happen that is going to allow you to really take off on the inside of your career. One of the big things we've been doing, if you're a part of the Josh Vegan Digital subscription, every single week I've been going in and producing this thing called The Edit, which is a summary of some of the biggest news stories of what we're seeing in both the Australian and the New Zealand marketplaces. And this is some of the great stories that are hitting our shores in the course of the last 7 or so days. If you have a quick look at it, some of the new data that has come out from CoreLogic, Sydney house values have risen by 2.6% in June, with Melbourne up by 1.5%. It points to really strong growth over the course of the year as robust demand has outpaced the disruption of all of these lockdowns. All capitals have notched at least a minimum of 1.4% growth, except for Perth, which recorded a marginal increase of just 0.2% in June. Sydney home values have risen over 15%, Melbourne up 9.8%, Brisbane up 11.6%, Adelaide up 8.92%, and Perth up 9.8% over the course of the last year. House values across all combined capitals in Australia have grown by 12.4%, whilst the regional markets have actually seen a 17.4% increase. In addition to that, nationally, dwelling prices have jumped by 13.5%, the highest annual growth rate in over 17 years. And it's pretty amazing when you get to kind of see what is happening in some of our marketplaces. For our New Zealand clientele, they've seen a 25% increase in property prices across greater New Zealand in the course of the last 12 months. So it's pretty amazing to kind of see this level of momentum and consistency. But what's actually happening in our market today? We're in the midst of what we got to call a listing crisis. Asking prices are rising as listings fall. A new report from SQM Research identifies a steep decline in old and new listings. The market remains strong despite the new outbreaks, the end of JobKeeper and HomeBuilder earlier this year. New listings have plummeted by a record 21.7% in Melbourne over the course of the month. Sydney is down by 9.1%, Canberra down by 10.1%, and Hobart down 10.4%. Nationally, new listings have slumped by 9.1%. Listings over 180 days have fallen by 6.1% nationally, whilst Canberra has posted the biggest drop of all at 13.9%. Over the year, national asking prices for houses have jumped 14.1%, while units have risen by 7%. What this goes to show you is that we are in the middle of a prospecting crisis. We're in the middle of a listing crisis. And I fundamentally believe that the 2-week lockdown that we saw in Melbourne meant that a lot of agents just weren't able to convince sellers to come to market. They weren't prospecting as much as they could have been to try to get those listings on. And we're now seeing that directly here in Sydney, that over the course of our 3-week lockdown that we're currently going through, that not enough people are being able to generate those opportunities. And this is a really important time for you to knuckle down and to focus about what's important. So today I want to get you into this position. We play a lot with your mindset first, and then we're going to go into some really tactical and practical conversations on what you can be really doing to drive your level of momentum. And we know that worrying is for people that have simply just lost perspective. And I love that quote by Matt Richtel, because it just gets me to think that, you just can't worry about the things that you can't control. You've got to be in a position that you gain some perspective, that we get to live in one of the best countries, certainly in Australia and in New Zealand, in the world, and that we're operating practically free of what we've seen happen in the rest of the world around this entire COVID experience. Don't give up on your hopes. Don't give up on your dreams. And certainly don't give up on your aspirations. This is a new world that we're operating in, and one that's going to force us to absolutely give our best. It's a bold new era, and we're not going to ever get back to 2004. And this is such an important conversation, that the pace of technology, the drama that's driven in the media, the advent of social media, the anxiety, all of those things that exist are going to be a part of our world well into the future. And it's such an important conversation because we need a new set of coping mechanisms in order for us to be able to absolutely perform at our absolute best. And it all starts with you right now making that decision to have a vision. And the vision is that either you are drama driven about what's currently going on, or you're in a position that you're future focused about where you're going and what you'd like to see happen. And I know it's been hard. I think the whole conversation, like, we literally turn on any of the local news websites, and what do you see? This flashing red light about latest news and breaking news, and everything's very urgent. And it's very easy to be drama driven as opposed to be thinking about what you can be doing to be really future focused. For me, I'm here in the Sydney marketplace today. One of the things that I do is I don't even look at the news. I've got the Twitter feed directly for the New South Wales Health, and I just look at about 11:30 and just have a quick summary on what our current restrictions may be. And I think that this is such an important conversation. I don't want to live a life that's paralyzed by fear. And I think that the media in the course of the next decade will only get more sensational in their headlines. And so what we need to be doing is we need to be thinking about how we really contextually want to live our lives over the course of whatever is left. And this is such an important conversation, that we must have a much bigger future than our past. It's also about getting the right mindset. Dean Mackey, who is one of my co-anchors on Fast Pace, our new podcast that we launched at the start of this year for business leaders, is all about this whole conversation that we either live in a world with the mindset of scarcity, or we live in a world with the mindset of absolute abundance. And the scarcity mindset is we're worried, we're concerned, we've got challenges, there's issues. Whereas abundance is about thinking what we actually can do, about realizing the beauty in the relationships of the great people that we have around us, and being able to connect with people in really powerful ways. And this is an important conversation, because Dean would say to me just over a decade ago that we live in what we call a VUCA world. And at the time, I didn't take much notice of what he was saying. I didn't really think about it. But now every single day, I really think about what he was talking about this conversation, that we live in a world that's volatile. We live in a world that's uncertain. We live in a world that's complex, and we live in a world that is ambiguous. And think about it. Over the course of what we've seen here in Australia, we had nearly practically every major capital in lockdown only last week. And that was volatile. We didn't know that was happening. It was uncertain. It was complex, that we could do certain things in certain locations, but we can't do them in other locations, and retrospective legislation. Things got ambiguous. We didn't know what we could actually do. And now this is such an important conversation, because it's about you defining a brand new world. And for me, that brand new world is about creating an environment that's safe, creating an environment that's certain, creating an environment that is a simple place to work, and an environment that's clear about what we do and when we do it. And it's such an important conversation. I know that Nick Dowling, the CEO of Jealous Craig, said to me that what he tries to do every day in setting up the Jealous Craig organization is to create an organization that is safe, but one that is filled with opportunity. And I love that, because it gets me to think about how I can absolutely go and play at my best. So what are you doing today to work with the team that are around you? with the other people inside of your organization, with your vendors and with your buyers to create safe environments, environments where there is certainty, environments where you make it very simple about what actually needs to happen, and an environment about where you're really clear about expectations. And this is such an important part, because if you can move to a position that you create this safety, this certainty, this simplicity, and this clarity, then you'll actually be able to achieve dreams well beyond what you ever thought that you could. And I love this because, Stephen R. Covey wrote a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I've been getting back into reading a lot over the course of this period. And one of the big things that he says is that ultimately you are in control. And he has this whole conversation that you got to start with the end in mind. And it leads me to probably one of the most confronting, one of the most brutal, but yet one of the most important conversations and questions that we can ask ourselves. And it's simply this: what do you want? And I love that question. What do you actually want? And this is such an important conversation, whether or not it's a relationship, or whether or not you want a baby, whether or not you want to get married, whether or not you want to buy a new house or get a new car or be the fittest that you've ever been before. You need to get that clarity about what it is that you actually really want. And this is so important because new goals plug you into a brand new energy source. And that's one of the things that I'm doing at the moment on a daily basis, is I'm just writing out some new goals, some new things, some things that I think that I want, just to get me into a position that I start plugging into this new energy source about, the progress that I want to make as a human being. And I think that this is an important thing, to redefine the era as not an era of chaos and confusion, but to redefine an era of opportunity that we can get out there to go to create. We know that it's so important, and this is some of the very early work that we did in the early days with Ivan Bresic at Bresic Whitney. And Ivan would say to me that it's so important to always have something to look forward to. And this was the notion that every 4 to 6 weeks, you've got to have something out there in front of you that you actually want. That whole conversation about driving towards a particular goal. And I think that's such an important driver. And that's never left me, that whole idea that every 4 to 6 weeks, what have you got looking forward to? Now, interestingly enough, when I open up my web browser, on the top right-hand corner, it always just has a list of the things that I'm going for with a day countdown until I actually get to that particular thing. And some of the great holidays, some of the great experiences that I've had, I've been counting down for like 90 days prior to heading into that particular thing, but it's given me something to look forward to. You are the person who sets the vision. You're the person who's got to get that drive and that motivation for what it is that you really want. So what we do in all of these situations is we write down a list of the things that we can do and the things that we can't do. We had the opportunity to learn this in our work with Place Estate Agents up in Brisbane, and Damien Hackett and Paul Curtin were very clear. They said, Josh, when new restrictions are put upon you, then all of a sudden you just write that into the can't do list, but then you actually go and you start writing down all of the things that you can do. And what you do is you shift your entire energy from the things that you're told that you can't do to shifting to the things that you fundamentally know that you can. And I took that on and I started thinking about that contextually, how could you apply certain things that you don't want to see anymore in your life on the can't do list, so then you can open up new thinking on the things that you can do. And Alexander Phillips says to me all the time, he says, Josh, the only reason why people have late night appointments in their diary is because they book them that way. And I love that. Like, if you want a new freedom, if you want a new world, then how could you actually say, I can't do appointments beyond 6 p.m., but I can do early appointments. I can be in a position I can see people on Saturdays, if needed to be, to go out for that listing presentation. This is about living life by design. So for me, what I did, as soon as we hit some lockdown conditions in a number of our markets, our business was massively disrupted, as was so many people's. And I actually just got there. I wrote down that list of all the things that I can do. And I said to the team, what we can do? We can share great energy. We can share insights. We can help so many of our clients around the world. Let's put Fast Format on. And in under 24 hours, just turn that around. And here we are today with over 1,000 people registered to go through today's webinar. And this is a really powerful idea about what you can do to connect more of the people that you fundamentally really care about. Well, I love this quote by Viktor Frankl. He wrote an incredible book, A Man's Search for Meaning. And it's this whole conversation that between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And I think about it like literally when you walk into the office every morning, when you're in a position that you're working from home, if that's what you're having to do right now, then literally you have the opportunity to be able to pull out that list and to get on that phone for the first 45 minutes and to call the people that you actually want to call. And I love that because it's the freedom that comes with you making the decisions on the type of agent that you would love to be. To me, it's all about understanding growth. And I love this little curve because you would have heard of the saying, invest ahead of the curve. And the basic idea is that you're currently here now, but this is actually where you want to go. But you don't know how to do that. You haven't done that before. And what we find is that we want to go and climb. We want to get to the top of that curve, but yet we actually don't have the things that we need. And this is about putting the support structures in and around us, putting that steel beam in, putting that footing in, making sure that we've got that supporting beam, better known as the infrastructure. And that infrastructure is about great people inside of our business, but also to having great systems that are going to allow us to really achieve the level of momentum that we want to, and to get to the heights that we're fundamentally capable of in our human potential. Now, why is this such an important part? Well, I just think about it all the time. Like sometimes you've got a decision that you want to be an agent who does 5 or 6 transactions a year, no problems. And you want to be in a position that you just do a few deals here and there, and that's actually okay. And that's akin to someone running a small bed and breakfast where there's maybe two guests that can stay at any time, and you'll make them breakfast and you'll make the bed and you'll do everything. Yet there are some people that have grand aspirations that they wish to be the Four Seasons, the Hilton, the Hyatt of their particular marketplace, and they wish to serve 600 customers a day. And in order to do that, they need to have someone who can be a specialist on the front door, who can be a specialist at the bar, who can run the restaurant, who can be the head of housekeeping. Now, why this is so important is it's about thinking about the vision of what you actually want to go to create. And to me, in order for a business to succeed, the most important thing that it needs to do is it needs to understand how it actually generates its leads. So one of the activities of what I'm getting people to actually do is that every single one of them, I get them to go and have a look at all of the listings that they've won in the course of the last 12 months. And then when I have a look at all of those listings that they've won in the last 12 months, I then go and say, okay, great. Now I actually want to ask you one very simple question. How did you actually meet that vendor? Now, the reason why this is so important is that how you meet the vendor tells me a lot about what really works for you in prospecting. And it tells me a lot about how you actually go to win your business in the listing presentation. And a lot of us are spending a lot of time and money and energy and a lot of debate about what works and what doesn't, when in fact, we can actually have really good quality data-driven decisions by getting very clear about what it is that actually really works for us in business. Now, if you know that your best lead source is the way that you go to work with buyers, then do more buyer work. But if you've got a ton of past clients and you generate no leads out of your past clients, then maybe it's time that you actually start doing more work around the past clients. So then you open up a brand new lead source that you've never had before. And to me, it's this whole conversation that the only way that you grow a business is you have a very clear set of business decision principles. And this is such an interesting conversation because it's the whole idea that, you know what, the number one thing that you might want to do is you might want to de-risk the business of a key person. And that's such an important part of what we do. It's the conversation of saying, you know what, I no longer want to be the key person that is just listing and selling all the time. I want someone else in my personal team that can actually list property outside of me. And that's important. Maybe you might want to get growth in new market share, growth in sale price, or growth in fee or volume. And the reason why that's so important is that if you increase your market share, you become more dominant. If you increase your average sale price, you have the opportunity to earn more fees. If you increase your average fee, you're earning more income. And if you can increase your volume, you substantially change the way that your business operates and how it goes to generate its leads. The third thing is that you might need leverage to serve more customers. And this is about getting really clear about what we go to call functional lanes. So what Josh does is he prospects, he lists, he sells, and he negotiates. What Prue does is that she's in the position that she does the customer experience, everything around admin, everything around dotting I's and crossing T's.
Not bad, Jim.
But what is important here, we've actually got a live mic there, Jess. What is important here is to make sure that we're very focused around what those actions actually really look like. Now, as a part of that, the driver is to make sure that that leverage in serving more customers is to make sure that we're doing things that are sustainable and actually are having some level of longevity. And I really want you to think about that what we're actually trying to do is to make sure that we're in a position that we can stay as focused as possible about the way that we go to work with customers in really, really powerful ways. Now, I love this whole conversation because it gets me just to think that the way to actually get that level of momentum is to make sure that we are going for things that are sustainable, that are going to actually really produce that level of longevity. And this is where you've got to start to think that the business has got to be fun and exciting. It's got to keep you interested. So I love that whole conversation. Now, when you go to make decisions, you say, if I went and put on another salesperson in my team, would it help me to de-risk my business as a key person? Absolutely. Will it help me to get growth in market share, in sale price, fee and volume? Absolutely. Will it help me to get leverage to go and serve more customers? You betcha it will. Will it give me sustainability and longevity? Absolutely. Is it going to keep it fun and exciting and keep me interested? You betcha. So that's what we do when we go to work with businesses. We open people up, we get very, very clear about what those decision principles are, and we stay focused about making sure that we make decisions that are in alignment with where we really want to go. Now, to do that, what we've worked out is that teams need to learn how to work together. And I've seen a lot of dysfunction in teams. Now, if you get to work with anyone in my business, you talk to the incredible Kylie or Steph or Jess, one of the things that you'll work out, I very rarely ever have conversations with them post 4:30 p.m. on any day of the week. And very rarely do we have any discussions on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I'm about making sure that we work when we work, but we holiday when we holiday. And this is such an important conversation. So I sit down in every business that I work with and every person who's working directly with me, and I say to them, look, how do I get the best out of you? And I just ask this question. You get the best out of me when what? When I'm clear, when you're specific, when you tell me exactly what you'd like to see happen, when you give me autonomy to be able to play in my own role. And then I go and have that conversation. When do I get the worst out of you? I get the worst out of you when you ring me at 9 o'clock at night about something that's not important. You get the worst out of me when I'm always on edge, wondering whether or not you're going to call because you actually don't have meeting rhythm consistency. You're in a position that you can count on me to do these things, dot the I's, cross the T's. But what I need from you is that communication time at the start of every day. You get the idea, and what these questions do is they flush out that dysfunction that sits inside of business relationships to allow you to be able to go and play at your absolute best. And this is such an important conversation because the questions that you ask of how you interact and collaborate with the other salespeople, with the property management team, with your business principal, make a massive difference in how you go to do the work. Now, ultimately, Naval says a great quote. He goes, how fast you want to grow should be an explicit strategic decision. So if you're in business today and you're currently doing 30 transactions a year and you'd like to get to 33 transactions a year, well, let's go for that. But if you want to get to 40 transactions a year, then we've got to start thinking differently. And this is the whole conversation that, if we times your volume and we said, now I want you to do 150 deals a year, you would have to change your entire model. It couldn't just be you anymore. You need someone else who's listing and selling. You need someone else that can actually help you and assist you to really go and play at your absolute best. Now, I love this. Lou says that culture isn't just one aspect of the game. It actually fundamentally is the game. And this is what you've got to start to think about. What is the culture of the organization? And we've learned a lot about this because during lockdown markets, businesses develop a new culture because we're not in offices as much as we would like to be. And that whole conversation is really important about, being able to make sure that we've got a culture before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and post, but one that's actually really productive so we can play at our best. Now, at the end of the day, we've got to go and define customer experience. And I was doing some work with a phenomenal agent here in Sydney yesterday over Zoom. And one of the things that we were talking about was about the most powerful groups of people, the lists of people that he reads over to make sure that his business can absolutely perform. Now, the first one in this list is a group of people that we go to call your buyer sellers. Now, who are the buyer sellers? These are fundamentally the people that we know that if we find them something to buy, then they will naturally go and sell with us. So what we do with the buyer sellers is we start the whole conversation. And a phenomenal agent, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Kelleher from Jealous Craig down in Melbourne, he said, Josh, you know what I'm doing is, he said, I just get on the phone and I ring every single one of my buyer sellers. It's such an easy call. Hey, Jenny, it's Josh. I just thought I'd give you a quick call. I know that you're interested in buying and that there may be a position that you may need to sell. Now, I know that you've already got your existing property. And quick question, when you find something to buy, are you actually in a position that you can own 2 homes, or ideally, would you like to have sold yours? Now, if they say they would have liked to have sold ours, then okay, great, no problems. Why don't we do this? Why don't we get you photographed? Why don't we get you ready as though you're going to go to market? Why don't we get a contract of sale? Let's get everything as though you are going to go. And then when we find you something that you like, in under like an hour, we can click the button and we can have that particular property, your property, loaded up onto the major real estate websites and get you sold within a 7 or 8 day time frame. So then you are buying and selling in exactly the same market conditions. Now, this is a really foundational piece because it's actually about getting on the phone and having that conversation. And over about a 6 or 7 week period, he was able to bring 17 of these buyers sellers into a position that they came to market with him. And that is such an interesting conversation around what it is that we do to make sure that then we've got that level of momentum and consistency around what it is that we do. So what I love here is this whole idea that then we've also then got a group of people of what we got to call our seller hit list. Now, the seller hit list is just a group of people that we already know. This is people that we've been out, we've gone and we've done the market appraisal. We know they will definitely sell. They're building a property. They've got a job relocation. They've already bought. They're in a position that we know they're absolutely about to go. And these people we read over on a daily basis and we think, what's been in the paper today? What's in the media today? What do they need to know about today to fundamentally get them into the position that they commit? And then we then move to our market appraisal list. All of these people that we've done market appraisals for during our career. Now, this has been a really fertile ground for getting great listings right now. Our agents are moving towards some really nice dialogue. There's 2 different versions. Version number 1, hi, Hannah, it's Josh. I just thought I'd give you a quick call. I'm just a little bit concerned, a little bit worried. I know we popped out, we gave you an idea on the value of your place, and things have significantly changed since we saw you towards the end of last year. I'm just wondering, would it be of some value for us to pop out, give you an idea on what it's worth now, because I just want to make sure that you're making decisions based around what your home is currently worth. And the reason why that's important, if you came out to my house, maybe in November, and you told me that it was worth 1.5 million, and all of a sudden one of your competitors came over to my place last weekend, and they walk through and they say, Josh, you know what? We think your house is worth 1.8 million every day of the week. Am I likely to get on the phone and to go and ring that particular agent who came back through in November last year and said, hey, do you want to update your appraisal? Or am I about to list with the agent who just told me 1.8 because the market has significantly increased? So these are some of the great risks that we need to mitigate in order for a business to absolutely perform at its best. Now, let's think about what we see. Some of the best agents in the country, and I have the opportunity to work very closely with Alexander Phillips. And one of the key things that I note is that when Alexander walks into the office every morning, apart from being lovely to all of his staff, good morning, great to see you, having that conversation, the first thing that he will do is that he'll go to the major real estate websites and he'll look for any new listings that have actually happened in the course of the last 24 hours. Then off the back of that, he'll then have a look at any sales that have been put into the sales section that have been sold, recently sold data of any properties that have sold in the last 24 hours in his core market. Every single time that he sees a new listing or he sees a sale that's been made, then what he does, which is super powerful, is he goes and identifies who are the people on his buyer seller list that need to know about that new listing. And he will pick up the phone and ring them and say, hey, Jenny, it's Alex. I just thought I'd give you a quick call. Number 35 Smith Street's come on. It's with another agent, but I think you'll buy it. Let me flick you a quick link. You tell me how close it comes to what you want. If you do go and buy it, let me know. And then I can then assist you to come over and see yours, get yours listed, get you sold. So you're buying and selling in the same market. Then the same thing too, when you go back through the market appraisal list, jumping on the phone. Hey, Jenny, I thought I'd give you a quick call. Number 36 has actually just been sold. Did you know how much it made? It made X. What does that now mean your place is worth? And this is actually the foundation of what great agents do. What could be more relevant than working through your buyer seller list, working through your seller hit list, and working through every market appraisal that you've already done? And there is so much gold to be had here by just staying focused on these 3 important lists. And this is the important conversation that we've got to learn the power of data in a digital driven world. We spend 8-9 hours a day on digital devices, phones, laptops, and iPads and tablets. And this whole conversation is that we now have these powerful data insights about people that are looking to do something at a real estate transaction level. Now, it all starts with email. The email is the breadcrumb. It's ultimately everywhere that we go. Everything that we do on an internet browser comes back directly through that particular email address. And ultimately, there is really great power in seeing this particular person with their email has now gone and opened that particular email and clicked on that particular link. And then off the back of that, they went to that website. And then off the back of that, they then moved themselves into a position that then they found out about that particular property. And then they went and then made the decision to go and buy a pest and building report. They went into the website, they downloaded a copy of the contract and the starter report. And now there's even technologies that are available that allow people to make offers directly from your website to facilitate the beginning of that negotiation process. So some of that incredible technology, things like ActivePipe, the conversation around things like before you bid, and then what we're seeing around props, the new entrant around taking offers, is fundamentally changing the way that we facilitate really important parts. But how would you be if you went to an open for inspection on Saturday, you clearly thought you had the buyer, and you went and you recommended the offer to the owner come Monday afternoon, not well knowing that two other buyers are in a position that they said, hey, I'm probably not that interested, but yet on Sunday went and downloaded a copy of the contract. On Sunday, they went and bought a copy of the digital pest and building report, and they were in a position of having their final chat with their financiers before they were intending to make an offer on the Tuesday. And this is what great agents are doing. They're actually saying, well, hang on a second, Josh, I've actually got to get good at putting in some really clear steps so I can track what consumers are doing digitally, so then I actually know what to do with them in the real world. And this just absolutely blows my mind about how much opportunity there is in what actually happens in these digital environments and what we can go to create in what we go to do in the real world environments. A couple of little things to get you to be thinking about it. And we know that routine is actually powerful. And, in an interesting conversation, I've had to build a new routine as we go through our 3-week lockdown. And I'm thinking, I want to be the fittest that I've ever been at the end of this particular period. And I think that if you go to have a look at the greats, and whether or not you're talking to someone like a Marnie Senior, whether or not you have a conversation with an Alexander Phillips, whether or not you're working with, people that are just starting out or people that have fundamentally made it, and some of our incredible agents in regional markets like Lindy Harris and Trevor Moliner and what they're doing, they're all focused on building an incredibly powerful routine. And this is some of the things that the greats actually do. We realize that we need to feel healthy, and our immune system relies on diet. It relies on our exercise. It relies on our sleep. And if you want to tap into a new energy source, shift your diet, shift your exercise, shift when you go to sleep, so then you can actually be more powerful in the times where you go to actually get out there and do the work that really matters. Now, you're either at peak performance or you are suboptimal as a performer. Tony Schwartz wrote a book called The Power of Full Engagement. And what he talks a lot about is about how do we stay in those peak performance states. I was reading a book by George Mumford the other day of the mindset of an athlete. And the whole conversation of what he was talking about was, before we called it mindfulness, we actually just called it stress management. And you can imagine, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, back in the day, they've got literally the game-winning shot. They're in a position, there's 6 seconds on the clock. They've got to shoot for that three-pointer and make it happen. That's stress management. But so too is understanding what we do when we're not performing and how we quickly get back on track. So here are some of the secrets to a good quality routine. Know when to hit refresh and promote active recovery. Active recovery could be 5 or 10 minutes just listening to a piece of music, 5 or 10 minutes just to go for a quick walk outside, get a juice, get a coffee. Literally, for me, I go and have a sauna at my house. And the reason why that's so important is it's my time to kind of de-stress and just bring it back down after being able to play at a really high level consistently throughout the course of the day. We know that champions are really good at the basics, but the interesting conversation is that no one actually talks about the basics. So in today's session, I wanted to show you some of the basics of what the best are really good at. The basics is things like this. Get yourself to 3 appointments a day. When you talk to a John McManus or you talk to a Peter Chauncey, one of the things that has absolutely transformed their business is about getting themselves, but also their team, directly in there working for those 3 appointments per day. Because if you can get to 3 appointments a day, it changes your world. Now, we're kind of forced in this particular lockdown in Sydney to go do private buyer appointments. but really booking more market appraisals and listing appointments is the name of the game. Buyer appointments build confidence. Market appraisals get you in front of people who are making decisions, and listing presentations are the bit where we really win the business. Now, 45-minute call session to start the business day. You shouldn't be going in there feeling tired, exhausted, oh, I'm a bit over it, don't want to make calls. That's an attitude issue. And you have 100% a chance to choose the attitude that you've got. To me, that 45-minute call session, that should be where you are literally calling the people you want to call and feeling seriously good around what you do. The best type of prospecting is the one that works, and it's the one that you love to do. And I think that this is the whole conversation. It's easy ringing people about a property that's been listed or sold. It's easy to connect with people that you've already met. It's easy to work market appraisals. It's easy to work past clients. You know, I'm in a position, I've bought a few properties during my lifetime, and I never, ever hear from the agents that I've actually bought from. Why is our industry so bad at the past client thing? Can't you just email them all around their annual checkup? Couldn't you just SMS them around their annual checkup? Can't you just call them around their annual checkup, particularly if it's an incredibly important relationship? And this is the whole idea. Every single day, you've got to drive your buyer appointments, your market appraisals, your listing appointments. You can't list 10 properties a month and only go to 0 listing presentations. And this is the whole idea. You got to start thinking about what you're intentionally really putting in that calendar. If it's not in the calendar, it's not in your life. And I have a set of very clear values where I say, number 1 is my health. Number 2 is my family and key relationships. And after that, number 3 is my work. And things go in the calendar in that very specific order. And that's actually what you're about, making sure that you're building those powerful routines so then you can absolutely play at your best. Now, the incredible thing here is the insight about having an amazing daily directions meeting. And the daily directions meeting is about saying, you know, what's ahead? You know, so let's have a bit of a look at it. Let's have a look at the calendar. Have we got rain today or not? Are we doing that photo shoot or not? What are the next 3 listings or sales that we think that we could make? And then what's actually been listed? What's been sold in the last 24 hours and who should know? So what great EAs do, what great assistants do, what great customer success people do in your team is that they go through, they have a look at all the new listings and all the sales that have been made in the last 24 hours. And then they quickly do the search inside of your customer base to find those particular people. And this is such an important part, doing the basics seriously well. Then if we do that, what's actually been left over from yesterday that needs to be done today? Now, in my business, I'm very lucky. Kylie, my head of sales, we speak every business day, 7 a.m. Happens to be a bit early because I'm already on stage by 8, but we speak about what's going on in the business. And we follow a very similar daily directions meeting. And then what we then do is at 3 o'clock every single day, we actually then come back in and we say, okay, great, let's actually now focus about what we can be doing and how we can be driving our results. What do we do today? How is the conversation? Who do we speak to? What needs to be done before we get to close the business? The secret to having a great life is having meeting rhythms that support the type of person that you actually want to become. And I love that as a basic idea. It is also important to make sure that you edit frequently. Let go of things that no longer serve you. You know, like if you're in a position that you're just not getting any success around doing that level of prospecting, change it. If you've got some things that just aren't feeling great, call it out. If you're in a position that you're just not in the right mindset, get yourself into a position that you let go of those things that are holding you back and you make the decision to have a very powerful future. And that editing frequently is a really important skill set. I always say to people, have more fun more often. And I've seen that in some of my amazing agents that have really taken off, is that they just got too serious. They were too tightly bound. They weren't thinking about the actions that they could undertake. You got to have fun with what you're doing. And I think that this is such an important conversation. You know, Ruben Packer-Hill, one of our great clients in Brisbane, he said to me, you know, Josh, you just got to have more fun with it. And this is such an important part. You play some good music, you have a great coffee, you're in a position that you're feeling energetic about what you're doing, and then you stay consistent around those actions. And at the end of the day, I think that the market that we're in right now is one of the greatest residential property booms that we will ever see in our careers. This actually is the chance that we've been waiting for. And this is now the chance to go and do something with it. Having a look at what we've talked about today, that buyer seller list, how you work in market appraisals, what you do specifically with some of those past clients, the drive to make sure that you're consistent in a daily directions meeting, a 3 p.m. loop back. learning how to work with the team, investing in the right infrastructure and people and systems, so then you can go and play at your absolute best. And I love this question. I'm a guy that loves questions that changes the way that I fundamentally think. And this is a great question because it says, if your life depended on business success in the next 30 days, what's the first thing that you should do? And without a doubt, for me, I would get on the phone and I would ring and create opportunity. If I'm new to a business, I'd go and ring all the people that have been inquiring on properties off the major real estate portals, all the people that have walked through open for inspections. If I've been around for a while, I'm going to ring my past market appraisals and my past clients. If I'm in a position where I want to crack a new market, I'm going to go and ring all of those local builders and have some great conversations with them about what's actually happening in their marketplaces. And I think that this is the difference, that you got to make the decision to really want what it is that you're doing. And so many of us are in a position that we're just letting weeks go by. I had a client say to me the other day, he said, "Oh, Josh, it's pretty good, isn't it? There's only 10 more lockdowns before the end of the year." And it kind of hit me a bit. It was a bit pessimistic in some respects, but I kind of thought, isn't it amazing how we're just willing to just let time go by rather than making today great? And I always think about that if this was my last ever presentation that I get to give, it's got to be my best. And I'm hoping that we've done that today, because this is the whole conversation. It's shifting you up. It's pulling you up to a higher level. This is time for you to go and play at your best. We'd love to see you. We've got our blueprint coming up. We are doing a number of tickets at home or at office. So you can do that in a digital environment if you're not able to actually make it to Sydney. That's going to be so great. We look forward to having you there. But I want to leave you on this final quote to get you to think in new and powerful ways. The greatest impediment to our success is rarely our competitors, but rather our own internal barriers. It's the barriers that we set that that's someone else's farm area. It's the barriers that we set that they're landlords. It's the barriers that we set, oh no, this is our little database. I don't use the office database. It's the barriers that we set that I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm just an assistant, I'm not an agent yet, I'm a junior agent. All of it is mindset, and you got to start to lift yourself up and to play at a much, much higher level. You know what you've got to go and do. You got to go and call every market appraisal you've ever done. You know what you've got to go and do. You've got to list as many properties as you can. We've had some individual clients that have done like record number of transactions here in Greater Sydney in the course of the last 7 days, 8, maybe 9 sales. And they're just in that position that they're just focusing on qualifying good buys, getting in front of people, making that decision to go for growth. Don't do this on your own. You talk to you more than anyone else. If you don't like what's being said, it's time to change the conversation and to do something in a new and very powerful way. Well, I hope that you have really enjoyed our fast format this morning. It is fast. That's exactly what we said it would be. We'll get a copy of the video to you a little later today. And we just want to say thank you so much for all of your support in helping us to assist you in your growth in being a great agent. If ever we can help you, then certainly reach out to us, live chat on our website, send us an email, events@joshfegan.com.au, or certainly feel free to give us a call. We look forward to seeing you on social. We look forward to hearing your stories of success. Stay safe, stay well, and focus on the things that you can do. You got this, and we're here to support you. Thanks so much, team. So great to see you. We look forward to catching up with you soon.